Welcome to the Connect with County Leaders podcast with your host, Bryan Hill.
Hello and welcome to Connect with County Leaders. I'm Bryan Hill, and on this edition, I have been joined by Tim Hemstreet, County Administrator of Loudoun County, a position he has held since December of 2009. I said that, 2009. Tim, welcome to Connection with County Leaders. Where were you before Loudoun? I mean, 2009, that's a lot of years, 13 years, 14 years?
It's been a minute. I was in Miami Beach, Florida.
So you were actually in Miami Beach, Florida.
That's where I worked.
And then you came to Loudoun County.
I did. Well, I grew up in the Reston Herndon area, so for those of you out there that are familiar with it, I finished elementary school at Forest Edge, went to Herndon Intermediate, Herndon High School, then James Madison University. So that for me, this was coming home. My wife's family's from Pittsburgh, so we wanted to come back to Virginia, this area.
So you're a Fairfax guy.
Well, yeah.
Previous
to
first
coming
life.
out. Now,
First life.
I will tell you, at least half of my graduating class from Herndon are probably Loudoun County residents. So,
yeah.
Been a bit, number of years since high school, but still run into some of them fairly regularly. So
now
I will give a shout out to all the Herndon Hornets out there. Absolutely.
I want to go back a bit. I think the first time you and I actually met was at a NACA conference, and I can't remember if it was San Antonio, Texas. I think it was in Texas. And I pulled you aside and I said, hey, it's finally a pleasure to finally meet you. Every time I read about you when I was in James City County, Virginia, or in Beaufort, South Carolina, it was always about the great things Loudoun County was doing. And it makes sense because you're educated in Fairfax County. So it makes sense now.
Or at JMU.
In JMU. So it's putting that back together. We had a lot of communication during this pandemic.
Yeah.
We learned so many lessons. What was one of the main lessons that you've learned as a county administrator? Because I don't think people understand that we have a multitude of departments that we have to deal with.
We do.
But what is the main lesson you learned during the pandemic?
Well, I'm going to answer that, but the first thing I'm going to say is, I want everybody to know, I don't know if you can see it or not, but Brian's got this iPad in front of him, and he's got a bunch of questions, and
yeah, I do.
Looks like this whole thing kind of scripted out.
Sometimes I read those questions and sometimes I don't.
Yeah, but I'm not going to show it. I have a text message from Brian that says that he was going to send me questions in advance, which he did not. So on my half, this is completely unscripted. But what I will say, are those the questions you're going to send?
It's right there.
Oh, okay. But anyway,
you mean they didn't send you questions, really?
No, they said you're going to send them. But anyway, to answer.
Well, here, this is what we'll do. You take that.
And I'm going to ask you those questions?
You could ask me anything you want. I'm going to put it this way so we both can see it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah, I know you don't.
The pandemic, I think, was certainly one of the largest challenges in my career. Mm-hmm. And, that the reason why I say that is because it was kind of all-encompassing. So everybody everywhere was kind of in the same situation. And, if I go back to my previous experience, being in South Florida, definitely in October 2005 when Hurricane Wilma came through South Florida, I was in the EOC in Miami Beach and, saw some things. It's nothing like sitting in a building as a storm is coming through and you're watching roofs peel off in the parking lots. And, you get out after that and you see kind of the devastation that a storm like a hurricane can do, but then as bad as that is and as bad as that recovery is, if you go outside the geographic area of that hurricane, people are going about their normal lives, right? And then you have assistance and help and everything else like that coming from other places. With the pandemic, there wasn't anywhere that you could go that wasn't impacted.
Right.
And so it was one of those situations where it was just bad across the board.
Yeah.
But what I did learn is the level of dedication that local government employees have, and I know this was the same in Fairfax as it was in Loudoun, where everybody kind of said, you know what, we're in this together, and we need to get through this. And we did some things that prior to the pandemic, I probably would have said, yeah, we could pull this off, but the level and we pulled off a pod or point of distribution for vaccinations that was capable of vaccinating 7,000 people a day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you look at the other. I mean, that is very similar to what some of the larger places across the U.S. were doing. I know that you had several pods that stood up that were there for the vaccination process.
Yeah.
We did mass testing sites.
Yeah.
And we never closed. Right.
We didn't, and it was funny. And I remember calling you, not particularly happy with a conversation I had with the state. And I said to you, I said, if they just gave us all the vaccines, we can do the whole state by ourselves. But they were rationing those vaccines, and we had a certain amount, and that created a little bit of hysteria. And then we were on a call, and 40% of the vaccines that were not used in other parts of the state. And I'm sitting there looking at these folks saying, well, just give them to us. We'll figure out how to get them all vaccinated, because we had lines.
Yep, we had lines, and then we had more capacity than we had vaccine.
Correct.
For much of it. So,
but COVID really piqued our emergency management philosophy, right? Like you said, I mean, I was in Beaufort, South Carolina. You have a hurricane, you go 50 miles west, or 50 miles north. There's nothing going on, but yet you come back to Beaufort, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of devastation here. Man, this pandemic was something. It was something.
I was talking to somebody about this a little bit ago, but I don't know if you remember, prior to the pandemic, seriously, prior to the pandemic, we did a pandemic exercise.
We did.
Right? So we had assumed, I think it was an assumption that there was some type of aerial burst of some type of bad chemical thing or biologic. And so we actually went through the process of setting up these pods. But, we assumed that it would be this acute event, like a hurricane or something like that. It's an acute event. So you do it, you hang out, you deal with your stuff for 4 to 6 weeks, and then life goes back to normal. But that's not what happened.
No, not at all.
We're sitting here. I mean, I think we're mostly past it now. But, that was 2.5, 3 years of something.
I'm gonna ask you this question, and you're gonna probably smile a little bit. The recession of 2008, 9ish. You were transitioning from Miami, to here. All right, take that versus this pandemic that has lasted us. And I've dubbed it COVID-60, and people looked at me like, "What are you talking about, Mr. Hill?" I said 19, 20, and 21. Then it went to 82. Then it went to 105, because we're still in 2020. We're in 2023. I still see the effects, the remnants of it.
Here's your printed version.
No, I'm good, man. I want to make sure you can see it.
Well, I don't want the battery to die for you.
That's okay.
Oh, you did charge.
This is not Loudoun County. We don't rely on data centers.
So that's backed up to your local driver.
This is on all in the cloud now, right?
Well, that's what data centers.
I know, but we got our own.
That is the cloud.
Hold on a second, but we got our 9 now.
Okay.
Compared to your 150.
It's one of those things that have really blossomed over the last decade and a half or so, and it's one of those things that people want, because you have a device like that iPad. I don't know if people can see it or not, or smartphone or something like that, or you watch your kids playing video games, and so everybody wants the ability to use a device, and but then it brings all of this other infrastructure, whether it's data centers, power lines. And so,
well, you guys have really done a great job with the infrastructure. But I'm going to ask you this one. I mean, before we talk about our infrastructure, when you look at Miami in 2008, 2009, Loudoun County, with the assessment drops, the recession, vis-a-vis COVID, pandemic, which was easier to manage?
That's a loaded question.
I'm sorry.
Because both of them have their pitfalls.
Right.
I think I would say that the Great Recession was something that was known, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those of us that have been here been in local government for a while in leadership positions, you know that you're going to hit a recession. It's cyclical, and there are things that you're going to have to do to take measures. But even during the recession, even though there's economic or financial difficulty, there are still most people going to work,
right,
or being able to go out and live their lives, go out and congregate with each other. I think what made the pandemic more challenging is the isolation.
Correct.
People were not able to go do those things that make people, right? Being able to congregate, go see a movie, I was talking with your staff out here, go to a baseball game, whether it's the Marlins or the Orioles.
You imagine sports radio for that 18-month span and had no games.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. They were just making stuff up.
I remember going through a high school season where, my kids participating in sports is wrestling, and there's no spectators. So you got this little video screen that you're trying to watch something happening, and it's stuff like that just made it more challenging, I think.
Yeah, but I think when I look at what you've done in Loudoun County and what we're doing in Fairfax County, it was very challenging, yes, but we've gotten, in my view, better. You and I have gotten a lot closer, obviously, because we've had to deal with things, not the same things, but the same things,
Yeah.
All right? Scale and scope, different, but yes, all the same. I remember speaking with you often, and it wasn't about COVID. It's like, hey, man, how you doing?
Yeah.
Because
I'm still tired.
I've never been I've never been as tired as I am today. But the reason why I was asking that question to you specific is because I believe in Miami-Dade you were the deputy.
Yeah, I was an assistant.
And then you come to Loudoun in the middle of the recession. Our skill sets change over time. We hope to get better over time. But yet the problems seem to get bigger and mushroom out more and more, which creates the tiredness because we're always spinning. So I don't want to talk about COVID much anymore, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to have COVID for another 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
Because we have folks. My workforce is 2 days in the office and 3 days telework. There's a lot of push on my end to switch that up a bit, and I'm still trying to get the flexibility, trying to allow my team flexibility to do it because IT positions don't really need to be in all the time.
Yep.
But yet I have, people in the front who need to be in all the time. So I'm trying to really understand what's next with COVID because COVID has created a lot of what's next. How are you dealing with the what's next with COVID?
So, my perspective on that is events like COVID, recession, anything that challenges society pushes progression, right?
Right.
So, whether that's leaps in technology, whether that's changes in how we use technology. So part of me looks at it and says, the evolution of sharing the workspace between a traditional office environment for those employees that are office-based and their home was something that was coming. So for example, my wife's a CPA. She, for the most part, has had a home office for at least the last 10 or 15 years, because unless they're at a client, they're typically, they might go to a central office maybe once a month or twice a month or something of that nature. So, for a lot of us, you mentioned IT positions, some IT positions, right? So, your help desk and folks like that need to assist people that are physically in the office still need to be available. However, there are a lot of positions that can be just as efficient and effective, working from home.
Right.
a few days a week. Now, I think the trick to that is figuring out how to manage in that virtual environment, because we get used to if you're in the office, you walk down the hallway, you catch somebody in their office, or you join a conversation, and you get a lot of informal work done that way.
That's right.
In a virtual environment, you have to be more deliberate about that, and that's a change that people have to switch in their brain. But I've watched my wife. They have a morning huddle at a certain time. It's the same time every day. Then they have their check-ins throughout the day. So there's a way to still remain productive and connected. But I think, to your point, there needs to be times and places when everybody comes in to get to know each other and to work together. But there's also other things that we've discovered that we can also use. So for our folks that are in the field, right? So you talk about crew leaders or lead workers and people like that. Prior to COVID, in order to order something, they're out in the field, something breaks, or they realize they need some more supplies or something of that nature, they'd have to get back in their vehicle, come back, see their purchasing person. Now it's you have a digital device. Yeah. You don't even you get on your Teams call, right, and you're talking to your purchasing person who could be at home, but they're working because they have the same work hours, right? And you have that video capability. You just turn the phone around and say, "This is what I need."
Yeah, and so in so many ways, it's made us more efficient. In so many ways, it's made us very much more unproductive.
Well, you got to pay attention to the culture. Yep,
right.
You got to make those connections.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about you a lot to a lot of folks around the country, and I say, Mr. Hemstreet and Mr. Hill have a lot of constituents, a lot of people that we have, residents that we have to deal with. When you look at the population of Virginia, just you and I got almost 20% of the population.
Wow.
Think about it. I mean, 8 million, and between the two of us, we got about 20% of the population. I always cite something. To my board, and I'm not sure if you do this, but whenever I'm out and about, I say 14% of the population is right here in Fairfax County. And they're like, okay. I said, we're 24% of the net wealth. And they're like, okay. I said, for every dollar I send to Richmond, I get 22.8 cents back. If I just get 2 more pennies back, I would be on top of the world. And I see Loudoun now at about 120,000 median income average, I guess, somewhere around there.
A little higher than that.
130,000, 140,000. Where you at?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there.
Are you seeing the same type of metrics that I'm seeing?
Yeah.
Because your wealth
definitely.
Your wealth is even more, and it seems like when we do better with our economic collaborations, because we do have a regional economic partnership now.
Yep.
When Arlington received Amazon, I went over to you and I said, "Man, that's awesome." And you looked at me. I said, "Trust me, man. We're going to be good because the Silver Line's coming. All those things are going to start planting up, and we're going to get more business." I have 48,000 registered businesses in Fairfax County.
Yep.
And our B poll went up $10 billion from one year to the next.
Wow. Just
in receipts, right? Because you know how B poll is. So are you seeing the same type of economic boom in Loudoun County that I've seen in Fairfax?
Yeah, so there's no question the Loudoun economy, has been growing and outpacing the region, DC Metro as well as Virginia. I don't know that we can as easily connect it to Amazon HQ2, just being a little bit farther out.
Right.
We've always had a strong, or at least I shouldn't say always, but for at least the last 20, 25 years, Loudoun has had a strong entrepreneurial business community. I mean, we 50% of the workforce in the county doesn't leave the county, so they're working in county, which is a little bit different from some of the closer in jurisdictions to the district. So we haven't seen a lot of that. There are people that commute, so I'm not going to say they're not, but a lot of our growth has been directly connected to the tech center. So, but how much of that is connected to Amazon HQ2, I don't know that we've been able to measure that.
Yeah, but I think you and I probably need to sit down and put our heads together to showcase. Now we have 14 Fortune 5s in Northern Virginia. You have, I think, one or two. Arlington has one or two. Fairfax has a couple. It seems as though that when Amazon came, in my view, I had a lot of other little spinoff companies coming in to support them.
Yep,
and I think you're going to see them flow into Loudoun County, especially if we can ever get the Silver Line open. I mean, we went to this big. What you laughing at, man?
I thought it was open.
Well, some of it is right now. I think they're closed again.
Well, they closed a portion of it.
Yeah.
But that's on the orange line, technically, I guess. But it's a silver line.
It's going to come to the silver.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to talk about that a little bit because after we leave this podcast,
we're going to go
talk to the general manager, Randy Clark of Ramada.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about work and stuff, but you know what, man? People don't know this about you, and I'm going to make sure everybody does, all right? You are a baseball and you're a sports guy. And I know you like baseball because I've talked to you about your kids who have played baseball.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is your favorite team again? Pro, and then we'll go to college.
Probably the Miami Marlins. Growing up was the Orioles, right? Because I was a team that was here. Mm-hmm. And then Pittsburgh's in there somewhere. Bucks are in there.
So you're like you're not a fair weather fan because when the Marlins are going good, you're like
yeah, they haven't been good since 2003.
2003, Josh Beckett, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I have to think because he was on that team. Yeah,
he was.
I get the '97 team and the 2003 team confused sometimes, but yeah.
Well, I got to say, I want to say thank you for joining us today. You said that I had notes, and as you can dutifully see, my iPad has been off.
Okay, but
no, but I can't. I have glass. Those are yours.
Oh well, is it the same as what was there?
No,
not
at all.
Oh.
But I want to say to everybody, to Tim Hemstreet, County Administrator of Loudoun County, not only County Administrator of Loudoun County, but friend. I'm proud to call him a friend. We talk a lot. We talk probably more than most peers in the region. We're not in competition at all. And when we are together, the rest of the room better be on point. Because we do make some interesting remarks, even with the gentleman that wears the sneakers with his suits in Arlington. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say to Tim, thank you for coming on Connect with County Leaders, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon on another connection. And I want to thank everybody for allowing this opportunity to get to know my friend as well as my peer in Loudoun County. So all the best to everybody, and Tim, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Bryan.
This has been the Connect with County Leaders podcast with Fairfax County Executive Bryan Hill. To listen to other great Fairfax County podcasts, visit fairfaxcounty.gov/podcasts. And for additional audio content, tune in to Fairfax County Government Radio at fairfaxcounty.gov/radio. For more Fairfax County news and information, visit News Center online at fairfaxcounty.gov/news. The Connect with County Leaders podcast is produced by the Fairfax County, Virginia government.